Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your host. Hey, Joe, to One Love. Here to bring you another episode of Sports Review Topics. A good week as far as sports goes. Of course, the NBA Finals wrapped up the other night. First thing I want to go over, however, is so I want to get to sad about this, but this year has been crazy. And I mean, with the virus and quarantine and the just everything, the election, we need to just can't be too divided. And found out the other day that for those who know me, know that I did football in high school, and one of my old friends from high school, his name is Evan. He passed away the other day, a motorcycle accident. So my thoughts and my prayers out to his family. He was a good friend during the time. And it was fun doing football with him. So, how prayers out to his family, and yeah, my condolences. So, with that, I wanted to get that out of the way. But again, thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, like and subscribe for all your sports content, whether it be predictions, reviews. Same with pro wrestling reviews. Subscribe. But a good week as far as sports goes. So on Saturday night, we had another UFC fight night. It was Corey Sandhagen versus Marlon Moraes in the main event. But one thing two fights people might not know have happened. There was a highlight reel knockout, probably the best knockout you'll ever see. There was a head kick that was caught into a jumping, spinning back kick that caught the opponent on the jaw, in the face, and just knocked him out. And that's as good as a knockout you ever see. Secondly, in a clash of heavyweights, big heavyweights, Ben Rothwell, Marcin Tybura. Of course, both have been middle of the road, middle of the pack as far as the heavyweight division goes. 561 attempts for strikes in the fight, the second most in UFC heavyweight history. And both went to war, and Marcin Tybura came out on top with a decision. Both have to be commemorated. It's a little crazy to see how, first of all, hats off for Tybura. He gets a victory over a name, and Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell, I mean, it's just, he was on that winning streak. When he beat Overeem, he beat Matt Mitrione. He beat Josh Barnett when Barnett was highly ranked. And he was just on a tear. And then he fought Dos Santos, and it's likely if he got a dominant win, he would face the heavyweight champion right after. However, he just got picked apart by Dos Santos, and Dos Santos won a decision. Uh, so, and then he was supposed to fight Werdum later that year, but then he got caught with USADA. Ever since then, he just hasn't been the same since coming back from suspension. But hats off to Tabora and Rothwell as well. So then the main event, Corey Sandhagen, Mara Moraes, the division 135, two top contenders, and Sandhagen came out on top with a spinning back kick to the dome. Moraes, he said, was stopped a little prematurely. I thought it was fine stoppage. But yeah, kudos to Corey Sandhagen. It looks to be Aljamain Sterling. I would think would get the next crack at Perion, but if they don't finalize with that, I think Corey Sandhagen might as well. The door will open for him if things don't materialize with Aljo. But there was that, and then the NBA Finals have come to a close. The Los Angeles Lakers closed out the other day and beat the Miami Heat in 6 games. I mean, first of all, hats off to the Miami Heat. They had a great year. They were the 5 seed coming into the playoffs. They were my sleeper team, I said, coming into the playoffs, and they showed how resilient they were with Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Adebayo, Iguodala. They just Tyler Hero becoming a young star. They just had a lot of pieces, and they deserve to be commemorated for their journey here. They swept the Pacers. They knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks, the team with the best record in the league. They beat a very good Boston Celtics team. And they won 2 games against the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. But Jimmy Butler, again, he kind of, when he came to Miami, he kind of instilled a culture, and they had the mindset that they were just there and they were going to go for it. They were really an underdog story, and they just took full advantage of it, and they just proved all the doubters wrong until the very end, and hats off to them. And as far as the Lakers go, you knew it was going to happen. At the end of last year, they were in good position. And then starting this year, they were doing really well. And then the unfortunate passing of Kobe kind of fueled the fire, almost like they had to win the NBA Finals. And then the virus hit, and then obviously they had to delay the season. Then the bubble appeared, and then uh, I was a bit worried because some teams that were hitting their stride, getting their momentum, uh, the there was like a push, like a speed bump, and certain teams could have been. It was good for some and bad for the others. But the Lakers, they fulfilled their job, um, winning their first title in a decade since 2010. Um, I mean, they beat the Trailblazers, who did a very good job coming from the outside of the playoff picture, um, winning over, being the Grizzlies to get in, win that 8 seed. They won the opening game, obviously, against the Heat, and then obviously um, they lost the rest. And then the Lakers, they beat a good Rockets team, and then they beat a phenomenal Nuggets team that will be here for years to come. Obviously, people were thinking about that, the possible Lakers, Clippers, Western Conference Finals, but the Nuggets put a stop to that, and the once again the Nuggets were at 3-1, but the Lakers turned course and got them. LeBron, he has his fourth title, um, one with um, his third team that he's won a title with. He's won one with Miami, won two with Miami, won one with Cleveland, and has now won one with the Lakers. Um, yeah, LeBron. What more can you say about him? Dwight Howard? He has his first ring, first in 16 years. He played a good role. Pope, uh, in some areas he shined. Kuzma, when he needed to. Um, Anthony Davis, uh, when he came over. I mean, really, last year they were a good team. I mean, but our last season's team, the Lakers team, was a good team. Then obviously there were the trades, getting out Brandon Ingram, Lonzo. And then they were able to bring in Anthony Davis, and then they kept Kuzma. You wonder how it was going to work. They got all this height, and then had all these bigs. Avery Bradley obviously opted out, but they still maintained the course, and they still brought home, made Kobe proud, and Lakers family proud, and they did it. Hats off to the Lakers. I mean, it was weird considering. Well, it's like okay, there was a little bit of a drought, um, where the Lakers, for 8 years, were in the playoffs, and it just felt weird. And then they returned to the playoffs, and it kind of felt weird as well because I mean the drought, and it just felt right because the Lakers are of course, besides Boston, are probably the most historic franchise in NBA history. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts on the finals. Now we'll get to the NFL news. Week 5 still going on. Today, I'll be making a a part 2 episode on Friday because the Bills Titans game was postponed to today, and that will be happening later. So I'll be making a video on Friday, doing some reviewing that game, giving my full tally total for my predictions in Week 5, and then I'll and for Week 6, except for 2 games, I have my predictions for Week 6. So I'll be going over all that. But first, let's go over the scores for Week 5. Excuse me, my voice is a little iffy, but yeah. So, and of course, the Patriots Broncos game was flexed out because Cam, or not sure, but one of the players, Byron Cowart, defense tackle, he tested positive. So that game will be moved to next week, as well as Jets and Dolphins, because it was supposed to be Dolphins and Broncos next Sunday, but instead it'll be Jets Dolphins. And Jets were supposed to face Chargers, who played last night, but they'll have their bye week. So yeah, one sec. Go over all the scores. So yeah, so Thursday night we had the Bears and the Buccaneers. They played Thursday and Soldier Field. Foles versus Brady 2. The first time they faced since Super Bowl 52 when Brady was on the Patriots and then Foles was on the Eagles. Both high-powered offenses in. The Bucs, they have a high-powered offense, was hindered by some injuries. And Foles' second start, obviously, last week against the Colts. They were pretty much shut down for most of the game until they scored late. But I thought, so the Bears won 20-19. I had a feeling because considering the Bears, how they looked against Colts, and how the Packers have looked, I figured there would be more desperation out of the Bears than the Buccaneers. So, nonetheless, the Bears won. Foles and the Bears are 4-1, only a half game behind the Packers, and they should be commemorated definitely. Brady and the Bucs, they're still 3-2, tied at the top of the NFC South. They'll play the Packers next Sunday, so they could actually do the Bears a favor with a win. But they'll get healthier. I mean, Fournette, he was hobbled. But yeah, And O.J. Howard, of course, out for the season. But good win for the Bears. They were down 14, and then they scored all the way back at the end to tie up 14-all. And then they just pulled away. The offensive line of the Buccaneers, Dolphin Smith and Tristan Wirfs, were being harassed by Khalil Mack. And I was confused as to why they didn't pay more attention to him. But it was sloppy football by the Buccaneers, a bunch of penalties. Some were iffy, some were just head scratchers. But nonetheless, if the Buccaneers can just clean up those penalties, get healthier, they'll be back. And like the Bears, I still presume them as a playoff team, both of them. Next, we had the Jaguars and Texans moving to Sunday. I was curious because I picked the Jaguars simply because, yes, it's Robbie Cornell's first game as the head coach, the interim head coach. But both O-lines were just iffy. And I thought maybe I trust the Jaguars O-line a little bit more than the Texans O-line to protect Deshaun Watson. But they did their job for the most part. The Jaguars, they had some drives moving down. They lost 30-14. Stephen Alshon missed 2 field goals. They seemed kind of off sync. But cool Surrey Texans, they get their first win that season. With considering all the teams in the AFC South are topsy-turvy. Except for the Titans, who are currently undefeated. We'll see how they fare against the Bills, but good for the Texans. So, I was wrong about this one as well. So, the Ravens beat the Bengals 27-3. Now, the first drive for the Bengals, they were driving down. They seemed like they were doing okay. They were comfortable. They were outside field goal range. And instead, I can understand because the Ravens offense, but I guess you gotta take your points when you can. And they passed up a field goal, went for it, didn't get it, and the Ravens just clamped down on the Bengals the rest of the way. Patrick Queen, former teammate of Joe Burrow at LSU, had himself a day, and it's just the Bengals couldn't get everything going. I was curious about the Ravens because the way Lamar Jackson was last week in practice. He had an illness. He had sat out the last couple days with a knee issue. But nonetheless, the Ravens looked good in fashion. So there's that. We have 3 teams in the AFC North with at least 4 wins, or with 4 wins. And good for the Ravens. The Panthers, they beat the Falcons 23-16. Honestly, the score was close, but honestly, it didn't feel close at all. It just felt like the Falcons, they just couldn't really get anything going. And the Panthers, yes, without Christian McCaffrey, but they're undefeated without him. Mike Davis has been a serviceable replacement in McCaffrey's absence. They'll only get better with him on their center. are behind Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater's look good as well. I mean, they have good receivers. They have Robbie Anderson. They have DJ Moore on the outside. And they just do what they need to do. Their defense is young, but it's growing. Derek Brown, Gross Matos, Dante Jackson. I think it was hurt for that game, but still, they have a bunch of young talent on that defense. And yeah, Shaq Thompson, um, they're just doing it, and they're 3-2. So watch out for the Panthers. The Raiders beat the Chiefs 40-32. The first time Mahomes has lost by 8 points or more. I tell you, going back to the draft, when the Raiders selected Henry Ruggs, it was a head scratcher. But once you think about it, okay. So the Chiefs have Tyreek Hill, who is probably the fastest guy in the league. They get Henry Ruggs because, I mean, you're not going to stop Mahomes. You're not going to shut them out. Clearly. But Paul Gunther, with his defense, he managed to confuse Mahomes just a little bit. And Max Crosby and that front four and the secondary of the Raiders did what they needed to do. And hats off to Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs and the Raiders offense. They just went blow for blow with the Chiefs. They did not back down. They were aggressive on fourth down as well. They made completions. Darren Waller, big completions to Henry Ruggs. Nelson Aguilar as well. Josh Jacobs and the O-line just had their way. And kudos to the Raiders. They're only one game back. Well, they're actually only half a game back now of the Chiefs now because obviously they beat them, so that's the tiebreaker. They face in a few weeks on Sunday Night Football, which should be fun in Vegas. So we'll see how that goes in a few weeks. But good for the Raiders and good for John Gruden. The Cardinals beat the Jets. I kind of figured Jets have been hapless. They didn't have Sam Darnold. Joe Flacco, he had some moments, but Cardinals, they just had. You knew this was a get right game, bounce back game, considering the two skids against the Lions and the Panthers the last 2 weeks. So, kudos to Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and the offense of Cardinals. Have to await the MRI of Chandler Jones. Hopefully it's not as serious as they fear, but if they do, that'll be a blow to that defense who's been playing better since last year. Then we had the Battle of Pennsylvania. Steelers hosted the Eagles. And Steelers won 38-29. Now, for the most part, this was a very close game. I mean, the Eagles were driving down late in the game, and if a Jake Elliott long field goal makes it in, they're ahead 32-31, but the Steelers pulled away at the end. The Eagles gave the Steelers everything they could have asked for, but the Steelers held on. And as we've seen, the Steelers, they're teams they should beat. They should beat easily. But they let the team hold on until the very end. I mean, that's just how they fare. That's how they fared the last few years. But still, the Steelers are undefeated, 4-0. I mean, so they're 4-0. So good for the Steelers. The Eagles, although they lost, they're still in pretty good place in their division because it sucks the NFC East. The Rams next, they defeated Washington 30-10. Now, first off, I want to say, kudos to Alex Smith. I mean, his journey ever since that leg injury 2 years ago, and the broken leg, that's first of all, then the infection, and then coming all the way back. I mean, just cool to see Alex Smith back on the field. I mean, because Kyle Allen started the game, and then he looked good, or he looked all right for the first part, and then he got hit with a helmet to helmet by Jalen Ramsey, which prompted Alex Smith to come into the game. Now, he kind of looked rusty, you could say, because, this is a different system than it was 2 years ago. I mean, just his first contact, really, in 2 years, because, I mean, he rehabbed all the way back from that leg injury. Then no preseason, no offseason. So, him getting hit by Aaron Donald and was his first real contact, and you knew that, okay, he is healthy. Now, it's just about getting back into game shape, and next week they play the Giants. So, hopefully with a week of rest and more reps, that Alex Smith can look better. He still has to get in where he was, but cool to Alex Smith. As far as the Rams go, I mean, it was pretty in the first part of the game, but eventually they pulled it away. Jared Goff looked good. That defense looked good. They are a force to be reckoned with in the NFC. So, next game, we go to afternoon games. The Dolphins, I predicted them to beat the Niners. I just didn't think it would look that easily. I mean, first of all, I had predicted the game last Tuesday, and I didn't even know Jimmy G was going to start, and he did. So, based off of I trust Ryan Fitzpatrick over CJ Beathard, that was my real logic. But over the whole course of the game, The 49ers, okay, yes, Jimmy G didn't look all healthy, but that defense, I mean, they were in the Super Bowl. And, I mean, yes, no Sherman, no Bosa, no Solomon Thomas, but they just they just were struck with FitzMagic. It's like they had no they were tricked by the magic trick of FitzMagic, and they just so first of all, for the Dolphins, okay, so next week they play the Jets. And then for the next 6 weeks, their games are very manageable. So they could easily be have probably 9 or 8 wins going into the last month of the season. However, for the Niners, it looks terrible for their next 7 games. They got the Patriots, they got the Seahawks, they got the Rams twice, they got I already said the Seahawks. They got the Saints, they got Buffalo, they got the Packers. I mean, it's just right now I don't have faith in the 49ers considering how they looked yesterday or on Sunday against any of those teams right now. It's just like, how bad was the Super Bowl hangover? That's what I'm looking at. Now, Jimmy G, he'll get healthier, but that defense just wow. Wow. And probably the game of the day was Cowboys. They defeated the Giants 37-34. Now, the story of this, because the Giants got off to a hot start due to a interception by Dak, and then the Giants just looked like, okay, they're running with it. And then over time, the Cowboys, I mean, it was a fumble recovery for a touchdown, which really sparked the Cowboys. But then the tackle on Dak Prescott, which was I hate to say it, but probably his final play in a Cowboys uniform. His ankle just went sideways and just wasn't a pretty sight on a tackle. And you hate to see it to any quarterback, especially one who is trying to earn his pay, but it's just damn. I mean, can't really say much. Now, Andy Dalton, but so it was compound fracture to Dak's ankle. Hope for speedy recovery for him. So, but Andy Dalton, he was serviceable. He did well. And led a game-winning drive at the end of regulation. And they got the field goal 37-34. And they're leading their division now with 2-3. The funny thing is, the Giants, even though they're 0-5, they're still in it. I mean, yes, they're 0-5, but they don't look like a. They're not a bad 0-5. They look like they're competing, they're fighting, but Cowboys were fueled by Dak. Just curious, will they be able to lead it the rest of the way? Because I still have questions about that defense. They still let up 34 points to a team that had not scored 17 points so far this year. And then on Sunday, they allow 34. It's just, we'll see how the season goes. Then we had probably the most intriguing matchup of the week. Colts at Browns in Cleveland. This was a tight game, but over the course, it was stupid interceptions by Philip Rivers. He had to. They kind of tried to play back into the game at the end, but they dug a hole. Here's the thing. They let up a safety, and they lost by 9, 32-23. If that safety doesn't happen, it's a one-score game, and he can score a touchdown to possibly tie it. But it was just mistakes. The last 3 weeks when they were winning, their best fit when Philip Rivers doesn't throw a lot. You can't rely on him to throw a lot at this stage of his career. Otherwise, he's going to make mistakes. And that's kind of why he went to Indy. I mean, he has that wall in front of him. Yes, Anthony Cassanzo at left tackle was there, but their backup left tackle was harassed by Myles Garrett. And they need to just stick with the running game. Jonathan Taylor, Hakeem Hines, do a little bit. They just got to dial it back because they aren't going to win a lot if they make Philip Rivers do too much. As for Browns, man, they're 4-1. First time since 1994. Kudos to the Browns. They've been probably the laughing stock of the NFL for the last 20 years. And now they've turned the corner. Kevin Stefanski, I think you can definitely say has them in the right direction. I mean, Myles Garrett is looking like Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They still rode through the run game. OBJ didn't have as big a week as he did against the Cowboys, but he still made some good catches. Jarvis Landry, besides like 3 drops, he had some good catches. Rashard Higgins, he is well. Close to the Browns. And then we move to Sunday night. The Seahawks won 27-26. Now, here's what I'll say. So, the thing that people will talk about most this game was, okay, the decision of the Vikings to go for it on fourth down late in the game when they're up by 5 and they didn't make it, and which allowed Russell Wilson and the Seahawks to drive down for the game-winning touchdown at the end. I mean, for the most parts, it was the Vikings game they were going. They played the way they wanted to play. They were running the ball well. Kirk Cousins, he made some quality throws. And then, I mean, they were up at the half. And then all of a sudden, it's just critical errors. There was a fumble by Cousins that are knocked out of his hands that turned into a touchdown. Then they tried to go back with it quick, and then Cousins threw a pick, which next thing you know, they're behind because of another touchdown. And then it's like it swung into their favor, and then it's just the Vikings lost sight of their game plan, and it looked like they just were riled because of the mistakes, and they were just trying to force, trying to get back after some of the errors, which forced some more errors, and they just need to calm down, and eventually they got back, and they were ahead 26. Well, I mean, in hindsight, they're like, okay, you go for it by 2 or to get ahead by 6. And then, or at least you thought, but then they didn't get the 2. And then it's just like, when you think about it now, it's like, okay, if they got the extra point and then they kicked the field goal, they would have been ahead by 9. But, of course, you're in the moment. You don't really know. Was that the right call to go for it? Yes. Why? I mean, yes, people say, oh, well, you go for it, you're ahead. I mean, excuse me. You kick it, you go up ahead by 8. And then, okay, you force Russell Wilson to drive down, get a touchdown, 2-point conversion, and then you go into overtime. Well, Russell is Russell. He is playing out of his mind this year. He's playing like an MVP candidate. I mean, you have to win it. You can't leave it in. It's like whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, you have to realize what's on the other sideline. Where they just, I mean, if it was, say, Jimmy G, or if it was, not as big quarterback, whether it was Jared Goff, whether it was, I mean, someone in the NFL. I mean, I can get why kick it, but you got Russ Wilson. Now, with that being said, that was the right call, but the way it was executed by the Vikings, it went well. By Alexander Madison, probably not. I mean, if they had gone for a sneak, because I mean, it's just, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they didn't get it and then they lose. So then they'll talk about it. How, oh, it was a bad decision. And then, but otherwise, if they gotten it and then won, then they would think, oh, that was a great decision. But it is what it is. The Vikings, yes, they're 1-4. They do not really look like a 1-4 team, really. I mean, you could argue that, well, they're tied with the Lions, or the Lions are half a game ahead of them because they're on their bye. But in hindsight, the Vikings are better than the Lions. I mean, just odd. This doesn't look like a team that's taking. This looks like a team that's trying to win. They just circumstances have not fallen in the right place for the Vikings. I mean, and but is what is the Seahawks. I mean, their defense still needs improvement. Um, yes, okay. They gave up only 26 points. Only 26 points. Once again, they relied on Wilson to win it for them at the end. And they need to fix that defense. I mean, yes, they acquired Jamal Adams, but he's hurt. I would not be shocked if before the trade deadline, the Seahawks make an attempt for a trade for a pass rusher. No matter who it is, or they might bring Jadeveon Clowney back because, yes, he didn't have much production last year, but when he was on the field, he was disruptive. So, I mean, they need someone because they lost Bruce Irvin. They're hope. I mean, yes, he's not like a big sack guy, but he got 8.5 sacks last year with Carolina and could provide production. But they obviously need someone. So those are my thoughts on that game. Now to the final, to last night's game. 30-27, the Saints won in overtime. What a game. I mean, first of all, Justin Herbert. The Chargers have a gem. And I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he did help him win week 1 against the Bengals, but there's a reason why he's a back. He's primarily a backup because of his style of play. I mean, 2017 was kind of his unicorn year because, I mean, they had a solid run game, they had a solid defense, and Shane McCoy and that Bills defense that was great. And then they were 9-7. And, I mean, they brought the Bills back to the playoffs after a lot of years, 17 years, I believe. But yeah, Justin Herbert, he has a cannon. He has an arm. And with the talent around him, they are competitive. I mean, the last 2 games against Drew Brees and Tom Brady, they had a 17-point lead. But then they succumbed to those 17-point deficits and just let him get away. And I mean, obviously, a rookie quarterback, a young team. I just wonder, I mean, if Dan Quinn got fired because of the blown leads, Anthony Lynn, he has to be kind of cautious and has to be a little worried about his job. But yeah, kudos to Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I mean, although they missed a late field goal to tie it, but it's the Chargers. It's Chargers. The Saints, it did not look pretty in the first half. Drew Brees, I mean, they let the drive down for a field goal. They made crucial errors, penalties, the pick by Brees. I mean, I remember my dad saying, he said that Drew looked out of it, but Drew stayed dialed in, and the Saints, at the end of the half, they let down the drive to get a touchdown to go into halftime 20-10. So it's like, okay. And then they came out half, 2 drives they were stumbled. Next few drives, they got a field goal, and then what do you know? We see a 40-yard touchdown by Drew Brees. Oh my gosh. I didn't think that could happen. It's just relieving to see that after all the hate Drew has gotten last year or the last few weeks. And then on a blown coverage, on a missed assignment, the Chargers got an easy touchdown. And then the Saints worked down to get a touchdown scored by Taysom Hill. And then overtime, they had a quality drive, but it was stifled. And then they kicked the field goal. Herbert and the Chargers, they play a few good plays, and then when it was 4th down, threw to Mike Williams over the middle, pressure in his face. I mean, kudos to Marshawn Lattimore and kudos to Demario Davis. They made the game-winning play, game-winning save, forced Mike Williams to be short, and Drew Brees and the Saints mount this solid comeback, 17 points down, and it's very interesting in the NFC South. 3-2 teams tied for first place, while the Falcons are just in the basement at 0-5. I mean, what to do. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Saints, 2 GOATs, 2 high-powered teams, where the Panthers are just right behind, and they're the underdog, but we'll see. Overall, that's an interesting point. So there's that. So that was the episode for today. That was my thoughts on the Week 5 games. Like I said, I'll have a part 2 on Friday, reviewing the Titans-Bills game. as well as having my predictions for week 6. But nonetheless, thank you guys all for joining me. This is a good episode. I believe so. If you're new, like and subscribe. Thank you all. I'll be back Thursday with your AW Dynamite review. 1 year anniversary for AW Dynamite. With that, thank you and see you on Thursday.